Hey guys, so I just tried the remote regionals for the first time and I finished 11th place, which is obviously unfortunate. Pretty close to top 8, and actually there was an X2 that made 8th place, so I definitely had a little bit of chance here, but it's totally okay. I was playing branded Despia as usual, of course, and I would say the two losses were actually really, genuinely, completely out of my control. My first loss was against to Rescue Ace. Shout out to Andrew, he actually ended up finishing 2nd place, which is amazing. Basically, game 3, he goes first, he has his typical set 4, and I have like an atrocious hand. It was something like Tragedy, Retribution, Thrust, Branded in red, and like Growl. It was just an immediate scoop. And my other loss was also to Flunder. Game 1, he had his usual setup plus Featherstorm, which I assume he probably only plays one because of Thrust, but I guess he hard opened it, and it sucked because I actually bluffed the battle phase. He went into Dreaming Town, put out Apex Avian along with the Empen he already had, and I actually had Super Poly plus like full gas, including a cross out in case I get Ash on Branded Fusion. So I felt like that one would have been winnable if it was not for that Featherstorm. And then game 2, I won with Idle Lock, and then game 3 he had Shifter plus usual combo along with Unexploded Winds, and on top of that anti-swell fragrance. So there was no way, I don't think, anyone could win through that. Again, those losses I felt like I were out of my control, but I felt I played really well throughout this event. I actually went undefeated at locals just the day before with this exact same list. There are some things that I was trying out, something slightly new, and I'm more than happy to go over it with you guys and just to gather some feedback, and let's try to improve it together. But anyways, let's just get right to the profile. Alright, so let's just start with the main deck. And so we have the 3 Fallen of Albaz as normal, the 3 Aluber, again, nothing out of the ordinary, 1 Tragedy, and 1 Quem. So I was playing 2 Quem. I decided to cut it back to 1. So I do definitely miss the second Quem sometimes, especially when you want it to come out of Granule, is when you already use like the first Quem. But the thing is, I decided to just put back the kit. As much as I'm not like the biggest fan of this card, I do feel that, especially in a grind game, like I really want to be able to just, let's say, either add back the Retribution that was banished, or like add back like a Branded in red. But on top of that, I just want to make sure I have the best ways to get access to Branded Fusion, and just even though it's kind of a hard deck because you have to return one card to hand, but at least the thing is there, and it's just good for the grind game. And we also have the Shrouded Dragon, double Cortesia. This also has not changed. One thing I did change is actually double Merc. Typically you do play with at 1. Sometimes, a lot of times in the earlier days of this year, people actually played at 2. So I actually did try playing Allure again, just a couple, and I just wanted to make sure that I have 1 for the Banish, either Gold Sark or the Allure, and just having a second Merc. I actually kind of always liked it, just because like if you start off with like a Gold Sark on this, I still want to be able to add a Merc off loss, just for that monster negate, especially to really ensure that gimmick lock goes through. And to be honest with you, I actually really like the Merc at 2. That's been fine for me, no issues. 1 Serenir, 1 Lebellion. I was also previously playing Magmanut. I decided to cut it just to increase that consistency instead. Fun fact, you can actually summon this from your hand as well, and not just the grave, in case, let's say, you like open both or something, and it's kind of like really awkward. But at the very least, you can actually still summon out Lebellion from hand as well, so don't forget that. We do have the Dark Magician. I've been honestly contemplating like trying to cut it, but I find, especially when it comes to like time situations and you're going second, this really comes up clutch, and this definitely has made the difference at this regional as well as like my previous regionals as well. So unfortunately, I don't think I can really cut it at this point. We're also main decking double Ash. We have a third in the side, and we also have the Gimmick Puppet as usual. I'll show you what I side out for like the Thunder matchup, but for the most part, Gimmick really strong, should be banned, but we'll see what happens when this ban is, whenever it actually comes out. So moving on to the spells, we of course have the 3 Branded Fusion, 3 Branded Openings, the 1 Branded Red, 1 Branded Lost. I don't think anything's really changed there. 2 Nadir. I was actually playing 3 Nadirs earlier. I kind of cut it to 2. I mean, it's kind of iffy. Like, on one hand, when your Branded Fusion gets Ash, like, this is actually still a pretty good backup plan. But if this is the only card you have and no Branded Fusion, it's not that amazing. You have some plays, but it kind of relies on the way your opponent plays it out. And so I decided to just kind of cut the third one, just to make sure, like, let's say with like a Lure, like at least like try to have a chance to digging branded fusion because that's just like kind of the ultimate goal really. And we also have 3 fusion deployment. This also fusion locks you, remember that. We have the 1 foolish, 1 gold sark for consistency. Foolish is definitely for the most part better, as my friend Murat would have said in that top 8 deck profile. You can check that out as well. He doesn't play gold sark. I totally understand that as well. Foolish is good because, you know, sometimes if you hard open this and you don't have to use it to get access to like a Luber because you already have it, for example, and in terms of branded fusion, you can always like dump Gimmick Puppet off Foolish Burial instead and use the Granule dump to send something, you know, a little bit better, like let's say like Ash Dragon or something. So that comes up. And as I mentioned, double Allure. So I was trying this out again. This is something that has been kind of common in like the older branded Despia builds. I decided to do it again because again, I kind of wanted to like dig into like more consistent cards, but even like post side as well, just being able to dig through for certain cards, like let's say like Cosmic, something like that, that can be really good against some, you know, let's say like Centurion. Like I don't want to get Calamity Lock and it's just complete FTK if you allow that to happen, or even draw into Super Poly, I guess. So I would say for the most part, overall this has been more of a positive, but at the same time, of course, there's going to be hands where, let's say you open like 5 spells, like you're just not going to be able to really use Allure. I mean, you shouldn't feel too greedy to try to resolve it all the time. Like a lot of times, you know, branded, you need discard fodder anyway, so this can just serve as a discard fodder worst case. But for the most part, this honestly helps unbrick a lot of hands for me. But I would say it's not really a guaranteed thing to play, obviously. It's really up to you. I'm still kind of testing it out. And then, of course, the triple Super Poly. This is definitely one of my most favorite cards of all time. Really, really good going first or second. We have the 1 Callbot, and I actually decided to play 1 Crossout. So I am not really a fan of playing Crossout, although more so at 3, because the way I see it is, you know, I hate playing like, you know, let's say 3 Crossout, and you're not even actually sure they play Ash, right? Or Imperm. But the thing is, and of course, if you watch my YCS Top Cut breakdowns, you'll know that it's not actually a given that they're going to play Ash and Imperm. They're not actually in every deck, although in most deck lists, to be fair. I decided to just play 1 just to serve as like a second copy of Callby, and it's not that much commitment. I was already playing 2 Imperm, 2 Ash anyways, and those 2 are the hand traps that I respect the most enough to play just the 1 Crossout, and so it's worked out really well. Like with something like, let's say, Droll, you can play around that really easily with branded. With Nibiru, that's also fine. Like honestly, I got Ash nibbed in like a game 3 against Infernoble, and I still gimmick locked them anyways without any of this. So like, only thing I fear is the Ash and Imperm, and of course, along with some additional hand trap kind of backup plan is Thrust for that fusion duplication. I would say there are times where, you know, this could have been, you know, let's say this might have been like a 3rd Nadir, and that might have been better because like if you don't have like branded fusion anyways, what's the point of having Crossout, right? But at the same time, this came up when it came up. It really, really made a big difference against something like Centurion. 1 fusion duplication, really good. Remember, this can also target the fusion in your opponent's graveyard as well, so if you're somehow in a mirror, it can also come up as well. And double Imperm, as I mentioned earlier. This is really good right now because of like Turbulence, for example, but again, I was playing this anyway, so I decided to play the 1 Crossout, just because sometimes Imperm on a Luber really can end your turn if you didn't have access to like Cartesia. So those were the 2 hand traps I respected the most. Moving on to the extra deck, I honestly don't think this has changed in months, so I'm just going to go through it as a formality. 2 Albion, 1 Lubellion, 2 Mirror Jade. Second one definitely comes up because of this guy, Rimbrum. For the most part, you're never really summoning this. There are certain hands where if you do have, if you hard open like Lubellion, for example, and you go Sanier, like, and you know, you can have like a Mercury Banish, and it can kind of get you access to like Cartesia plus like Sanctifier, like Gimmick Lock, in ways where you normally might not have had access to. So 1 Ash Dragon, 1 Sanctifier. This is definitely my favorite one because of that Gimmick Lock. We also have the Granule. I wish I could play 2. That definitely comes up, but a lot of times there are hands where I would actually shuffle this back with like Lubellion, and then just to summon this out. There are weird hands where that kind of comes up, and then you would just like make it again with Cartesia, which is really, really nice. Super Poly targets Mud Dragon, Garura, and the Dragostapelia, and then of course Guardian Chimera, the Dragoon, really MVP in terms of burning for time, unfortunately, and the Lulu. So this is kind of funny because for the most part, you know, you're sending this off like, let's say, Nadir server, or maybe it comes out of Granule. Keep in mind that if you're summoning off Granule, just make sure you didn't activate Branded Fusion that turn, because otherwise you are fusion locked, so you're not going to be able to summon the Lulu Lilith. The other time though, I've actually synchro summoned this just with like, let's say, you know, like, I don't know, like Cartesia plus Mirror Jade. You synchro into this, and then if you had a Quem on board, then it's even nicer because now you bring back that Mirror Jade as well, and you have Lulu Lilith, Mirror Jade, and Quem. And you got to remember that when, you know, a card leaves the action deck, it does give that permanent attack boost, so it can potentially lead to OTK as well. And finally, onto the side deck, we're going to go with the third Ash. We're going to play the 3 Droll. Definitely comes up in many matchups. The 3 Nibs. So this was actually in the #1 most played hand trap in the most recent YCS Bologna, that breakdown that I did, that you can check out as well. So, it's kind of in a way surprising to me. Like, yeah, of course, Nibiru is good. I was kind of surprised it was the most played hand trap, but for now, I felt it was safe to keep it in. This is an interesting one that I saw from someone else. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the player who topped with it. I would love to give credit. I decided to do this just because against Flunder, obviously, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare doesn't do anything, and this is kind of like a gimmick for Flunder because your opponent cannot summon monsters. Fun fact, this was actually translated wrong. This in the TCG. In the OCG, this actually says you cannot summon or set monsters. In the TCG, it just says you cannot summon, which sucks. This was printed in 2009. It's the only printing, and there is no problem-solving card text. Anyways, this technically, I was also considering it for Labyrinth. The only downside of that is that it just happens to be a Fiend. So if they manage to get, like, a big welcome and, like, into the grave, they can, like, banish it and bounce this back. Otherwise, I think you can still, like, at least, like, put it on, and then, if you have, like, Branded Red set, like, if they try to set some traps and pass, you just blow up the back row because they still cannot summon. Nonetheless, I would say it's really just mainly for Flunder. It came up twice. I've faced against Flunder, and it was just straight up FTK. Like, they cannot play with this card on the field unless they have something non-engine, like, let's say, Book of Moon, which they typically play. So I would say for the most part, it has been pretty interesting. Yes, Flunder has not been very well represented at YCS level, but from a regional level standpoint, I would actually say it's actually still pretty up there, definitely. So I wanted to respect it. Gimmick, again, does not do anything, and I wanted to have this. You can go for the Dimension, or rather, sorry, Zombie World, Necro World Banshee as well. I decided to just, play the one. I also had played There Can Be Only One as well for Labyrinth and Flunder, but you have to hard draw that, which is still, I guess maybe worth it. The downside of, going for this line is that, or Banshee too, against Flunder, is that if they have Shifter, you cannot do it at all, right? So that's the downside, but I didn't really like having to send Banshee off Lubellion against Flunder, just because you don't plus as much, right? Like, it's much better when you can have, let's say, like, the Brandon Lost set up, Brandon Red setup, because you went for the Albion play instead. So that's why I decided to go with the Ido. The double Book of Eclipse. This used to be, I used to have like a Dark Ruler in here as well. I kind of cut that out. I actually kind of like Eclipse as well, especially against something like Pearly. I actually cut Herald of the Abyss as well. I felt like it didn't really work out because they would just set a quick play spell, and then they would just summon like a little cat and then just send that away instead for Herald of the Abyss. You do also have Ash Dragon, which is like unaffected by like extra deck monster effects for that turn that it's summoned. And so as long as they don't have Delicious Memory, like Ash Dragon can just attack over the X-Pearly Noir anyways. And this is also nice for a lot of different matchups, even like Centurion as well. Again, I'm trying to avoid that Calamity Lock because otherwise you just straight up lose. And speaking of Calamity Lock, we also have the double Cosmic Cyclone for them as well. It's really good because also against Fire Kings, that's a pretty popular deck recently that can also be pretty good against that strategy as well. And of course against Labyrinth, this is always nice to have, just being able to banish. And some more back rows, of course, the Feather Duster, that's a guaranteed. Just the one evenly matched. And again, because I am playing Allure and you have Thrust, I felt like it was like pretty decent. It was still fine to play that one. Definitely came up. And then I actually decided to just side the one Masquerade. I normally don't play any time cards, at least with Branded. I was a little bit worried because of this remote event, just because I would have to like actually look up and search like every card that I don't know instead of being able to just pick up a card and read. So I was kind of worried about time. It didn't really come up. I did side against like one matchup, but it again didn't really come up. But I can definitely see its use for it. It is commonly sided in a lot of Branded Despia builds, though. I really want to find room to actually fit this in the main deck again. I do think it puts a lot of pressure, especially against something like Flunder, Teal Limits. But its extra deck is super tight, but otherwise I would definitely try to fit it in. Anyways, guys, that was it for the deck profile. Hopefully you found that enjoyable. Definitely let me know in the comments how you might change certain things. Of course, I already have my invite to NAWCQ with Branded Despia actually, so there wasn't any pressure or anything in terms of event. I just want to have fun, and I really did. And this event was really smooth. They are actually hosting a few more remote regionals every week for the next few weekends in a row actually, so definitely go check that out if you're interested in playing as well. But anyways, thanks to all of you for watching. Thanks to my patrons as usual, and well, take care, guys.